All right, so today we're headed to Venice.
Venice, amazing.
And, everyone thinks of Venice, they think of the canals, the gondolas, the romance.
The beauty, the art.
Yeah. But we're going a little deeper today, right?
That's right, digging deeper into the heart of Venice, really.
To the Doge's palace.
And St. Mark's Square.
Because, these places aren't just pretty to look at. I mean, they are, but they are so much more than that, right? They tell a story.
They tell the story of Venice, the rise of the Venetian Republic.
Its power, its culture, its art.
Yeah.
All of that's woven into those stones, into those squares, into those canals. And we're going to try to untangle that a bit today.
Exactly. We've got some fascinating historical accounts, architectural details.
The blueprints, the maps, the whole thing.
To try and understand why these landmarks are still so important to Venice's identity, even today.
It's like having a key, to unlock these places, to understand them.
Like a secret decoder ring.
Yes, exactly.
So we'll be your guides today through the labyrinth of history.
Okay, so let's start with the Doge's palace, all right? This palace, its origins, they go way back to the 9th century.
9th century, way back.
After the government had decided to move to the Rialto area.
Safer, more central.
Right, smart move. And that was around 810.
810, that's when Doge Agnello Participazio gets things rolling, starts building what they called back then a Palladium Duce.
Palladium Duce, sounds impressive, huh?
It was, and it was probably made of wood, mostly.
Wood, really?
Yeah, and you can guess what happened.
Fire.
Fire. 10th century, it burns down, but they didn't give up.
Oh, they rebuilt.
They did, stronger than before as a fortified structure this time.
Had to adapt, right? To pretty dynamic time.
Absolutely, and it just kept evolving.
Fast forward a bit, 12th century, Doge Sebastiano Ziani, he comes along.
Ziani, he was ambitious.
He was. He's the one who expands the palace, creates those incredible facades you see today.
Facing the Piazzetta, that little square leading to St. Mark's Square and the St. Mark's Basin.
He had vision, that's Ziani.
He did, truly a turning point for the palace, making it a real symbol of Venice's growing power.
And then come the 14th and 15th centuries.
Ah, the Gothic era.
The Doge's palace gets that incredible Gothic architecture.
Around 1340, construction kicks off. They start on the lagoon side.
And by 1424, Doge Francesco Foscari, he's in charge now, and they're extending it towards the Piazzetta.
With space for the law courts.
Can't forget the Porta della Carta, though.
The grand entrance, added in 1442.
And you see this pattern again and again, right? The palace constantly adapting, growing, rebuilding.
Driven by the Republic's expansion, fires, you name it.
Venetians never stood still, did they?
Always innovating, always reflecting their power and their architecture.
And then there was that fire in the late 15th century on the canal side.
So the Doge's apartments, damaged.
Antonio Rizzo steps in to rebuild, brings in some Renaissance elements.
Mixing it up a bit, yeah. It's this blend of styles that makes the palace so unique.
It's like a timeline of architectural style.
And of Venetian history, right?
Yeah. Let's rewind a bit, back to that move to the Rialto in 810.
Strategic move.
Absolutely. A much safer location for the government. And more central, too, right?
Heart of the action.
And the palace, well, it wasn't just a home for the Doge, was it?
Oh, absolutely not. This was the beating heart of Venice, the nerve center.
Give us the rundown.
All right, so we've got the Doge's official residence, of course. But then you've got government offices, meeting rooms for the councils, the law court.
With those infamous prisons.
The Pozzi, the Piombi, yeah. And then there's the State Archive, the Senate House, places for diplomatic receptions, even an armory. You name it, the Doge's palace had it.
A city within a city.
Exactly, the whole Venetian government machine operating under one roof.
So what happened to the palace after the Republic fell?
Well, it had to adapt, didn't it?
It became
administrative offices for a while. Then, for a short time, it even housed the Marciana National Library.
And finally, in 1923,
it becomes the public museum we know today.
Open for everyone to marvel at.
And marvel they should. Architecturally, it's stunning. Venetian Gothic, they call it.
Venetian Gothic, unique.
Totally unique. A blend of Gothic, Moorish, and Renaissance influences with a little touch of Byzantine.
I love those pointed arches, those ornate decorations.
It's all in the details. The delicate tracery, the lace-like stonework.
Like a giant, intricate stone tapestry.
And the materials, the pink Verona marble, the white Istrian stone. Breathtaking.
And then you've got the open loggias, the arcades.
The Porta della Carta.
The giant staircase, don't forget that one.
And of course the Bridge of Sighs. All these features are so iconic.
And speaking of iconic, some pretty big names in architecture left their mark on the palace, right?
Oh yeah. Filippo Calendario, he was there in the early Gothic period. Giovanni and Bartolomeo Bon, they designed the Porta della Carta. Antonio Rizzo brought those Renaissance influences. And even Andrea Palladio.
Palladio, wow.
He proposed a neoclassical redesign after a fire. But the Venetians, they decided to stick with their Gothic style.
They knew what they liked.
And they loved their Venetian Gothic. It was part of their identity.
And inside, don't forget what's inside.
Inside is a treasure trove of art. Tintoretto's Paradise, for example, Veronese's masterpieces, works by Titian, Giovanni Bellini, Vittorio Carpaccio. You name it, they've got it.
It's like walking through an art history book.
It is, and the art wasn't just there to look pretty.
Oh, it had a purpose.
It did. It was a show of wealth, of power, but it also told stories, stories of Venice's history, its victories, its myths.
It was propaganda, in a way.
Well, you could say that, but it was also art. Beautiful, powerful art.
Propaganda or not, it's stunning. And the palace itself, standing right next to St. Mark's Basilica, it was a symbol, wasn't it?
The ultimate symbol of Venice, of its government, its power, its culture. It was where the Doge was elected, where he was crowned.
The center of everything.
Exactly. And it saw its fair share of history.
Those fires we talked about, the conspiracy of Doge Marin Faliero, and of course Napoleon's arrival in 1797, which marked the end of the Republic.
The end of an era.
And then the palace became a museum. But it's more than just a museum, isn't it? It's a monument.
A monument to the Venetian Republic, to its triumphs, its struggles, its art, its spirit.
All right, now let's step outside the palace, shall we? Into St. Mark's Square.
The heart of Venice.
Start small, though, right? Because it wasn't always this grand piazza we see today.
No, it began as a much smaller area back in the 9th century, probably with some trees.
A bit more green space.
It evolved over time. In 1174, they filled in the Rio Battario Canal, which really opened up the space.
And it was paved in 1267. And then finally, in 1735, they gave it the natural stone surface we see today.
Quite a transformation.
And as the Doge's palace grew, as St. Mark's Basilica was built,
it naturally became the center of Venetian life. Political, religious, social.
Doge Sebastiano Ziani, he played a big role in its development, right?
He did, back in the 12th century. And then you've got the basilica itself with its incredible history. The story of St. Mark's relics being brought to Venice in the 9th century.
A bit of an adventure, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely, a daring heist. And then they built this magnificent church to house the relics. Byzantine architecture, 5 domes, those incredible golden mosaics.
They're mesmerizing.
Over 4,000 square meters of them.
And the 4 bronze horses of San Marco brought from Constantinople.
War trophies. Symbols of Venetian power.
And then there's the Campanile.
The Campanile started as a watchtower in the 9th century.
And it just kept growing.
Reached its full height in 1514.
But then disaster.
It collapsed in 1902.
Can you imagine?
Luckily, they rebuilt it meticulously, brick by brick.
Just like the original.
Exactly. And if you climb to the top today, you get the most amazing panoramic views of Venice.
And we can't forget the clock tower.
The Torre dell'Orologio, an early Renaissance gem.
With that incredible astronomical clock.
Showing the time, the zodiac sign, the moon phases.
And those bronze figures, the Moors striking the bell.
And on special occasions, the procession of the Magi figures. A sight to behold.
It also marks the entrance to the Mercery, doesn't it?
It does. The heart of Venetian shopping.
So St. Mark's Square, it was truly the stage for Venetian life, wasn't it?
It was. All the big events, the celebrations, the processions, the political gatherings, they all happened here.
The Feast of Vicenza.
A celebration of Venice's marriage to the sea.
The carnivals.
Weeks of revelry and masks.
Even public executions, up until the mid-18th century.
A darker side of history.
So you see, the Doge's Palace and St. Mark's Square, they're more than just landmarks. They're the embodiment of Venice, its heart and soul.
Its past, its present, its identity.
They tell a story of power, of art, of culture, of a republic that rose from the lagoon to become a force in the world.
And they invite us to think about how these physical spaces, these monuments, these squares, they shape us.
How they shape our societies, our cultures, our identities.
What are the Doge's palaces and St. Mark's squares of our time? Where do we gather? What do we build? What do we leave behind?
Great questions. And that's what we're here for, right? To explore, to learn, to question.
To dive deep.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of Venice.
Yeah.